Hey everyone! So yesterday, I was at a coffee shop, and I heard someone say, "This movie was so long. I am boring." And honestly, I used to say the same thing all the time. If you've ever said "I am boring" when you meant to say you felt bored, you're definitely not alone. But here's the thing, this tiny mistake completely changes what you're actually saying about yourself. So what's really going on here? And more importantly, how do we fix it? Let's figure this out together here on Lady Show English, because trust me, once you get this, you'll never mix it up again. Alright, let's talk about why this mistake happens so much. Imagine you're sitting in a really long meeting at work. Your boss is going through slide after slide, and you're just struggling to stay awake. The meeting feels endless. So afterward, your colleague asks, "How was the meeting?" And you want to say, "Oh my God, I felt so bored." But instead, what comes out is, "I am boring." Now, here's the problem. When you say, "I am boring," you're actually saying that you are the boring person. You're telling your colleague that you're not interesting, that you're dull. But that's not what you meant at all. You meant the meeting was boring, and it made you feel bored. Let me give you another example. You're on a date, let's say it's a first date. The person across from you is talking about their stamp collection for 45 minutes straight. You're trying to be polite, but inside, you're thinking, this is not going well. Later, your friend texts you, "How's the date going?" And if you reply, "I am boring," you're basically saying, "I'm a boring person on this date." But what you actually wanted to say was, "I am bored, the date is boring, and you feel bored." See how that one word changes everything? But wait, there's actually a really simple way to remember which one to use. Let me show you. Here's the trick, boring describes the thing that makes you feel that way, while bored describes how you feel. In other words, the meeting is boring, so you are bored. The movie is boring, so you are bored. The book is boring, so you are bored. The thing that causes the feeling takes ing, and the person who experiences the feeling takes ed. Think about it this way, if something is boring, it has the power to make you feel bored. The thing is doing something to you. It's boring you. Almost like an action happening to you. And this pattern? It works for so many other feelings too. But before we move on, let's practice this one first. I really want you to feel comfortable with the difference between boring and bored. Ready? Let's put this into real situations. Let's go back to that coffee shop scenario. You're meeting a friend, and you want to tell them about your weekend. Here's how the conversation might go. "Hey, how was your weekend?" "Honestly, I stayed home and watched a documentary about tax law. It was so boring. I was bored after 10 minutes, but I kept watching because I paid for the streaming service." See what happened there? The documentary was boring, that's the thing. I was bored, that's how you felt. Now let's try another one. You're at a party, and someone asks you about a book you just finished. "So, did you like the book?" "Ugh, no. It was really boring. I was bored by chapter 3, but I forced myself to finish it." Again, the book was boring. You were bored. The pattern is clear, right? Here's one more. Imagine you're talking to your coworker about a training session. "How was the training yesterday?" "It was boring. I was so bored that I almost fell asleep." The trainer just read from the slides for 2 hours. The training was boring. You were bored. Easy. But here's something interesting. What if you want to describe an actual boring person? Well, then you can say he is boring or she is boring, because now you're describing the person's personality, not your feeling. For example, why don't you hang out with Mark anymore? Honestly? He's boring. Every conversation is the same. I get bored after 5 minutes. So in this case, he's boring means Mark is a boring person, and I get bored means that's how you feel when you're around him. Starting to see the pattern? Good. Because now we're going to expand this to other feelings. So boring and bored aren't the only pair like this. In fact, English is full of these ing and ed pairs, and they all follow the same rule. Let's stay in that same coffee shop. Imagine your friend is telling you about something that happened at work. You won't believe what happened today. My boss announced that everyone's getting a bonus. It was so exciting. I was so excited I couldn't focus the rest of the day. There it is again, the announcement was exciting, the thing. She was excited, how she felt. Or let's say you're watching a horror movie with someone. This movie is terrifying. I'm terrified. I can't even look at the screen. The movie is terrifying. You are terrified. Or maybe you're talking about a book you just read. The ending was so surprising. I was completely surprised. I didn't see it coming at all. The ending was surprising. You were surprised. Or here's a tough one, imagine you're helping a friend with their homework. This math problem is really confusing. I'm so confused. Can you explain it again? The problem is confusing. You are confused. See how it works? Every single time, the thing that causes the feeling gets ing, and the person experiencing the feeling gets ed. And honestly, once you get this pattern down, you'll never mess up boring and bored again. But let's take it one step further. Now, let's talk about some situations where people really mix this up. Because it's not just about movies and meetings, this shows up everywhere. Imagine you're at work, and you have to do the same task over and over again. Maybe you're entering data into a spreadsheet, or you're answering the same customer question for the 100th time. You might say to your coworker, "This job is so boring. I'm bored out of my mind. Can we switch tasks?" Or let's say you're traveling, and you're stuck at the airport because your flight is delayed for 6 hours. You text your friend, "I'm so bored. There's nothing to do here, and the wait is boring. I've already walked around the airport 3 times." Or maybe you're in class, and the teacher is explaining something you already understand. You might think to yourself, "This is boring. I'm bored. I already know all of this." But here's where it gets interesting. What if you're the one giving a presentation, and you notice people looking at their phones? You might worry. Oh no, am I boring? Are they bored? In that moment, am I boring means is my personality or my presentation style boring? And are they bored means do they feel bored right now? So you can actually use both in the same sentence, because one describes you, and one describes their feeling. Here's another tricky situation. Let's say you're on social media, and you see someone post, "My life is so boring." What they mean is, the things happening in my life are boring. They're not saying I am a boring person. They're saying their situation feels dull. But if someone says, "I think I'm boring," that's different. Now they're saying, "I think I'm a boring person, I'm not interesting to others." Big difference, right? Let me give you one more example, and this one trips people up all the time. Imagine you're describing your weekend to a friend. Wrong, I stayed home all weekend. I am boring. Right, I stayed home all weekend. It was boring. I was bored. Or, right, I stayed home all weekend. I felt bored, so I called some friends. The weekend was boring, that's the situation. You were bored or felt bored, that's your emotion. But you're not a boring person just because you stayed home. Alright, let's wrap this up. If you take away just one thing from this video, let it be this: boring describes the thing, and bored describes the feeling. The movie is boring, so you are bored. The book is boring, so you are bored. The meeting is boring, so you are bored. And remember, this pattern works for so many other words too: exciting and excited, confusing and confused, interesting and interested, surprising and surprised. The list goes on. So next time you're about to say, "I am boring," pause for a second and ask yourself, am I describing how I feel, or am I describing myself as a person? If it's how you feel, then what you really want to say is, "I am bored." And honestly, you're not boring. You're just learning English, and English has some weird little rules. But now you understand this one, and you're not going to mix it up again. If this helped you, let me know in the comments. And if there are other confusing word pairs you'd like me to explain, tell me. I love making these kinds of videos here on Lady Say English. Alright, that's it for today on Lady Show English. Keep practicing, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.